Reid. Why Lorraine Chase is hoping for a shining success as Aladdin. And we meet the child star who's making a comeback at the age of 11. Good evening. Robert Reid, the man who snatched his little boy Jason and defied a court order to return him to his mother, is tonight beginning a 4-month jail sentence. Judge Lewis McCreary, sitting as a High Court judge at Winchester, told Reid he had committed the grossest possible contempt by taking Jason to Canada when the boy had earlier been made a ward of court. He told Reid that he did not believe he'd acted on the spur of the moment. He said, "You must have made plans, and I find the greatest difficulty in accepting that you did not use Jason as a pawn in this continual battle between you and your former wife." Jason, who's 7, was taken out of this country in 1979 and went into hiding with his father in Alberta. His ex-wife, Wendy Reid of Manor Farm Road at Bitton, Southampton, went to Canada and was awarded custody. On Wednesday, Reid arrived in Britain with his present wife and was arrested by special branch officers before leaving the plane. After jailing him today, the court went into private sitting when the judge heard an application which would prevent Reid from ever seeing Jason again. In the end, access was denied for 9 months. After the hearing, Mrs. Wendy Reid hurriedly left court by car, saying that justice had been seen to be done. It was in marked contrast to Mrs. Jill Reid, who burst into tears outside the court. She said she was heartbroken. This afternoon, she went to stay at her sister's home in Southampton with her baby son Brian, and Preston Witz went along to talk to her.
Jill, how do you feel about the sentence passed on Bob?
Well, we knew that he would have some kind of a sentence. He came back, he knew he had broken the law, so he had to take what was given, I guess.
Do you feel it was severe?
I don't really know. Might have been light, it could be severe, who knows. I think it's hard, seeing it's going to be Christmas, and it's going to be Brian's first Christmas. That's going to be hard.
What are you going to do over Christmas now?
I will be staying with my family. Obviously, I don't have anywhere else to stay. My home is in Canada. So I've been lucky. I've got lots of family, so they're going to put me up over Christmas, probably until we know exactly what's going on.
You saw Bob after the sentence, didn't you?
Yes, I did. He just sort of wished us both a good Christmas and look after Brian. He thought it was hard that we can't apply to see Jason. That is hard.
Are you going to miss Jason?
I missed him the day he left. Of course we miss Jason. And I think Jason would certainly miss his brother. They were very, very close. It's hard. It's going to be a tough Christmas.
Preston Witz talking to Mrs. Jill Reid, who also says there's to be an appeal against the 9-month ban on seeing Jason. The question we don't know, of course, is what is little Jason making of all of this? Let's now catch up with the rest of the regional news from Ronnie Charlwood. Ronnie?
A young child has died in a house fire on the outskirts of Reading. The fire in Gladridge Road at Early was confined to one room. It's thought a child had been playing with matches. A fire in a boatyard at Southwick near Brighton is disrupting traffic on the A259 Coast Road. A number of cylinders have exploded and there's danger of flames spreading. The fire is being dealt with by firemen from Hove and Lancing and a number of other stations. Police now believe that the armed man who attacked a supermarket in Brighton last night was also behind another raid in Southwick the previous day. In the Brighton raid, a man armed with a shotgun forced a security guard to hand over £10,000 outside the Fine Fare supermarket in London Road. The previous day, £15,000 was taken from a bank at Southwick. Detectives, meanwhile, have been examining the getaway car. It's a stolen Austin 1100, which was found abandoned in Clayton Road near the town's racecourse. Anthony Wilde, the man arrested last week after an 8-month search by Sussex police, faced a new charge when he appeared before magistrates at Hove today. Wilde, who's 35, was accused of taking part in an armed robbery at a supermarket in Cheltenham last April. He's already been charged with attempted armed robbery at a supermarket in Brighton. Wilde, of no fixed address, was remanded in custody. Scouts and guides at a Hampshire village have been strongly criticised by the Post Office. It's over a cut-price postal service which they've started up to raise funds for a new headquarters. Steve Clark reports.
The existing scout hut at Oakley near Basingstoke has seen far better days, and the scouts and guides are anxious to get a new one. To help raise the money, they decided to take advantage of recent government legislation and set up a Christmas postal service. They charge 5 pence, less than half the cost of a second-class stamp, to deliver cards anywhere in the village. And they've been running the operation in all innocence. But it's drawn fierce criticism from a union which represents more than 400 postal workers in the area. The secretary of the Basingstoke branch of the Union of Communication Workers, Peter Reddy, has denounced the scheme as child labour, and he's won the support of Basingstoke's head postmaster, Mr. Peter Patterson. He says it represents unfair competition and could affect jobs. Not surprisingly, the Scouts have been somewhat taken aback by all this. They say they're shocked, and they point out that they're not only trying to help themselves, but hard-up villagers as well.
There's been another appeal for witnesses to Tuesday night's accident in the Western Esplanade at Southampton that killed 2 young brothers. Police are anxious to trace a man in a white Mini who stopped at the scene. He's described as stocky, aged about 40, and wearing a white patterned pullover. The council at Weymouth appear to be heading for an all-out clash with the county council over plans to close the Dorset Institute of Higher Education. Weymouth and Portland Borough Council say the plans would leave a gaping hole in the local economy. As well as being a big employer, the institute contributes about £1.5 million a year to Weymouth. They also claim it would be unfair on the 500 students, and they say they'll ask the government to overrule the county council. Plans to extract oil at South Warnborough near Basingstoke have been rejected by Hart District Council. They want to have more details of the effects the plans would have on the area. The anti-nuclear demonstrators who are camping outside the Greenham Common Air Base near Newbury had to call in the fire brigade last night. One of their tents went up in flames and was destroyed, but no one was hurt. There's consolation for people in the Worthing area of Sussex who were struck by flooding twice in the past year. 14 residents at Ferring have won a 15% cut in their rates because of the danger to their homes. The ruling by the county valuations officer means that dozens of other people in the area who were affected by flooding are almost certain to win a similar concession. The Electricity Council say that all homes in the south which were disconnected in recent storms have got their supplies back. The last few homes were reconnected last night after 5 days without electricity. 200 staff at the Worthing factory Euro Medical Industries who've learnt that they're losing their jobs have been promised big redundancy payments. The company say they'll pay their staff at least 50% above the legal minimum, and they'll do everything possible to find them new jobs. And finally, a family at Sturminster Newton in Dorset have been saved from a miserable Christmas without most of their possessions. Mr. Maurice Matterface, his wife and 3 children, who recently moved house, have been trying to scrape together enough money to pay the removal firm who've been looking after their furniture and toys. The firm had threatened to sell the lot to cover the storage bill for £450. But Mr. Matterface has just been told that his old army regiment will pay part of the bill and the rest will be met by Social Security. Today, Mrs. Matterface said it was the best Christmas present of all. That's it. Now back to Chris.
Signs of Christmas in the air. Now, if you think there's to be a speeding free-for-all in Sussex with the police force there scrapping special radar trap units, you're dead wrong. The cuts, along with postponements of some promotions for officers, are designed to pave the way for more bobbies on the beat. Chief Constable George Terry sounds this warning to motorists.
It means only this: instead of having a team of officers operating radar and not operating traps, may I say, but making it quite overt when they're carrying out this work, instead of those officers, the traffic patrols, directed, as I've already explained, properly to the areas where they can do the most effective job, where the need is greatest, they will use the radar equipment. So to the public, please remember, Speed kills, and we shall still be doing the same thing as we always have done, trying to curb it. And for those offenders who seriously commit excess speeding, they will be dealt with just the same.
Chief Constable, you've decided that in the forthcoming year you will not be promoting any constables to sergeants. Now, is that not going to rather upset a few officers, do you think?
Well, I didn't decide not to promote people. The situation is that by reabsorbing men to the front line onto the beat, I'm adjusting somewhat in a number of places the ratio of sergeants to constables. It will match indeed in the future the national sort of average and be very comparable with other forces of our size and in this part of the world as well. It means, of course, that in the interim period until I get this whole reabsorption carried out, some people who thought they may have been promoted within the promotion system in the coming year will have to wait a year longer. I've discussed it with them, they all understand it, and they accept it, of course, probably with a little disappointment, as I would.
Peter Clark with Mr. George Terry, the Chief Constable of Sussex. Frank Sinatra, George Best, Muhammad Ali all have something in common. They are, of course, expert in making comebacks, being, it seems, unable to retire gracefully. But what happens when you're making a comeback at the age of 11? Meet Miss Claire Hood from Basingstoke.
Nowadays, singing with the Vine School Junior Choir is as near as little Claire Hood gets to the stage. But 4 years ago, things were very different. At the age of 7, she was chosen from over 2,500 youngsters for a starring role on the London stage in the musical Annie. Her performance won rave reviews, but in the way of child stars, Claire eventually left the show and settled back into the quieter life at school. Now, though, she's back in the limelight with her first ever record called A Little Christmas. I talked to Claire about her recording debut, but first asked her about her initial taste of show business in Annie.
It was exciting. I enjoyed it very much. Being Molly, that was the youngest part. It was hard work at first, but then I got into it.
And what about when you gave it up? I mean, were you a bit sorry to leave the stage behind?
Well, I was a bit. I enjoyed it very much, and it was, you know, a bit sad to leave it, but I had to go, really.
And what about the record you've got out now? How did that all come about?
Well, I had a rest from Annie for about 2 years, and then they asked me, and I was glad to do something again about this record, and, you know, I was really excited.
And was it difficult to make a record? Because you'd never made one before, I don't suppose. What was it like?
Oh, well, it's exciting, and I enjoyed doing it. It was a bit scary at first, but then I got into it.
Do you like the record yourself? Would you go out and buy it?
Yes, I would. I like the words and I like the music. I think it's lovely.
Of course, it's all about Christmas. What does Christmas mean to you?
Oh, I just enjoy it. I just love Christmas.
What are you going to do now, Claire? What are your ambitions for the future?
Well, when I leave school, I'd like to go on to drama school, and from there I'd like to be in musicals and plays.
So you really want to be a star?
Yes.
OK, you can put your handkerchiefs away. Perfect poise from Miss Claire Hood hitting the right note for Christmas. She was, of course, talking to Steve Clark. We'll end part one on a spirited note. A stiff whiskey saved Vicky the hamster, a victim of today's big freeze-up. Bob Sproat found his hamster frozen in his back garden at Poole. So, knocking back a quick scotch, he gave his dying pet the kiss of life and, surprise, surprise, Vicky the hamster revived. Bob, a Scotsman, of course, said, "I hope she doesn't get a taste for it." We're out for the count, back in a couple of minutes. Lorraine Chase has been described as the flavour of the year, the girl who put Luton Airport on the map and did for Cockney rhyming slang what Penny Keith did for the aristocracy. Her recent successes have included Pygmalion with the tailor-made part of Eliza Doolittle and Dolly Clothespeg for Wurzel Gummidge. Now she's winding up the year in pantomime at the King's Theatre Southsea, where she's been dusting off Aladdin's lamp. Lorraine, tell me, when you were a little girl, what was the first pantomime you ever saw?
I didn't really go to a lot of pantos because we were too skint. I don't know whether I ever saw any. Because I remember when I did Cinderella the first time, I didn't realise that there was a dame in some Cinderellas, and there's sometimes, you know, the dad and everything and the storylines. So I wasn't too sure on them. But, so I've seen Cinders now. And of course now I've seen him roughly Aladdin, because as you know, you only have 8 days to get a panto
Exactly.
together.
I mean, the rehearsal is no time at all, is it?
No, because 8 days, but then you've got a day's travelling, and then days like this, you know, when they're lighting and sorting things up. So you ain't got a lot of time, but somehow it all gets together.
How do you feel about playing a boy? Is it strange?
Yeah, it is a bit difficult, because the girl who plays the princess is wonderful and beautiful voice. So I'm very lucky, but it is difficult because, you know, you have to be the sort of geezer type, and it's a bit odd, really. Anyway, let me show you my shoes, because like I had these specially done. A little geezer makes them for me.
A little geezer?
And this is for the jewelled scene when I've got the red and black on, which is my, I shan't show you that one, because you've got to keep something in lieu of, otherwise you wouldn't want to come and see it. So that's the shoes, but look at the backs on them. Isn't that pretty? Little geezer does it all by hand for me, so that's the red lot. And then the gold shoes here, these go with that gold costume there. Can you see that in there? And the gold plumes, all the sheesh.
All the
I love
what?
it, all the sheesh.
What does
And-
sheesh mean?
Well,
Come
you
on, you've got
know,
to translate.
feathers and gump and, oh, I love it. So that's the gold one.
Are you doing
for
any
that.
dancing? I mean, that's what looking at the
yeah,
shoes.
well, that's another story.
What do you mean?
Well, you see, I rather got put into all this. And I love it, I'm not doing anything against it. But I mean, I didn't go to acting school, and I didn't get brought up in a school where you dance and sing and all that number. I mean, if I'd have gone ballet, they'd have killed me where I come from. So it's all very much it's a great effort, and this year I was determined I wanted to do more dancing, to try and do more dancing there, because, you know, you want to do something for the kids that are going to see you.
People say Christmas isn't Christmas anymore. I mean, are you a traditionalist for Christmas? Has there got to be a green tree and the turkey and all
Well, we're in a lovely little hotel down here. Really sweet people are there, and they've got the tree up, and they've got, you know, the bits and pieces up and that. And they've really been looking after us and asked us what we want and cooking nice.
Do you do any cooking yourself? Do you stop a turkey?
Well, if I was at home, I'd do cooking, but of course here you've only got a day off. So you're getting a right 2 and 8, you know what I mean? A bit
Right,
tired
what?
as a 2 and 8. So, you know, they're going to cook it for us. But they're lovely people. Because when I was down in Pygmalion, I
Piggy?
stayed at the same place. And so I booked it up for Christmas. I'm quite looking forward to it this
You would
time.
like me to come around and be a translator for
You could
Point,
do.
sir.
You could do if you like. Yeah.
Lorraine Chase, the girl who can't half talk and who'd want to stop her. She's appearing at the King's Southsea in pantomime over the Christmas season. Time now for Southsport. We don't have David Bobin, but we do have Steve Clark, who I'm told is not so much a sportsman, more of an armchair enthusiast. Is that about right?
Yes, definitely emphasis on the armchair there. And I think there might be a few others in the same boat, actually, this weekend, because as Britain's sub-zero temperatures continue to reach the parts only they can reach, it looks as if the majority of the South League footballers will be watching their weekend soccer on the television rather than from the pitch. To begin with the bad news, Southampton's potentially thrilling clash with an in-form Arsenal side is now definitely off. The referee took a look at the Dell pitch this afternoon and ruled it unfit to play on as it remained obstinately frozen over. Meanwhile, over at Brighton, if you thought all footballers were men of steel and generally 20 times fitter than you'll ever be, you'd be wrong, or at least in the case of Leeds United. Brighton's home match with Leeds has been postponed because no less than 9 of the Leeds players have gone down with flu. The But with the Goldstone ground in first-class condition, it seemed a pity to waste it, so Brighton will be playing a friendly against Luton Town instead. Manager Mike Bailey will be putting out a full first-team side for the match, for which admission to the stands will be half price. Down in the 4th Division, the news is very gloomy, with Bournemouth's away game at Hereford and Aldershot's match at Wigan both postponed. Back in the 3rd, Portsmouth's game at Swindon is still on, with Bill Rafferty back in the squad after recovering from a foot injury. And at Elm Park, Reading's game against Brentford is on at the moment, but there'll be a pitch inspection there tomorrow morning. But to leave you on a brighter note as we all start airing out our thermal underwear, there's news of next summer's sport. Brighton's Steve Ovett, according to one national newspaper, will be meeting Sebastian Coe next year for a run-off over 3 distances to decide once and for all just who's the greatest. We wish Steve a lot of luck and, of course, some slightly warmer weather. With that, back to the man who's Britain's fastest man on 2 halves of lager, Chris.
Yes, that's about right, actually. I mean, you should mean when I'm trying to run. It's really quite ridiculous. Tell you what we'll do. We're not quite ready yet for weekend and Roger Livingston. He's still getting himself ready. So we'll have the weather with Trevor Baker. Trev, we're not going to have any more blizzards like last weekend, are we?
It's very unlikely, but the weather is going to be very cold throughout the weekend. There's no sign of any relief yet. There's, tomorrow's going to be a dry and sunny day like today, but there's a slight risk of some snow coming in on Sunday from the southwest, but no sign that any snow will be as bad as last Sunday's was. So let me show you what's happening. This high pressure over Ireland is moving eastwards towards us, and that will get rid of the very strong winds that have been blowing today. They're coming from the north, and over the North Sea here, temperatures of the sea are high enough to produce shower clouds. They're drifting in over eastern coastal areas, but nowhere else. You can see that quite clearly on the satellite picture taken this afternoon. And because there was hardly any cloud over the country, the outline is very clear. If you look closely, there's the outline, and there's most of the British Isles. But in the east here, these white shower clouds forming over the sea, coming in over eastern parts. They won't affect many parts of the rest of the country. Right, here's the forecast chart for noon tomorrow. In most parts of the country, we have a dry and sunny day. But in western parts of Ireland during the day, there'll be occasional rain coming in from the west. Now, in the south, the lowest temperature tonight will be around -6 degrees centigrade, bitterly cold night. The best temperature tomorrow, just a little bit above freezing point, +1 if you're lucky. Tonight's going to be dry everywhere, tomorrow will be dry everywhere too, and it'll be a nice sunny day. Winds are going to be northerly, breezy tonight, lighter tomorrow for 6 to 8 over the sea tonight, light for 3 to 5 tomorrow. And finally, I'd like to mention that Mrs. Aggie Thomas, who's in Northcote Old People's Home at Gosport, is 106 years old today, though she's not the oldest lady in that home. And Louise and Brian are being married at Fishbourne tomorrow, and they'll have dry and bright weather. That's all. Back to Chris.
It's the weekend before Christmas, traditionally the busiest time of the year in the high street. So far, traders report spending is down, mainly due to the Arctic weather conditions we've been having. But if you're a strapping giant of a man like Roger Livingston, you don't let the freeze-up spoil your entertainment, do you, Roger?
Hardly anything but Christmas events are on this weekend, so you just have to stop shivering at home and get out there to enjoy yourself. There are plenty of carol concerts to get you all puffed out, and there's bound to be one near you, so do go along and help warm the place up. At St Mary's Church at 4 on Saturday, there's a Christmas reflection in words and music. They're floodlighting the grounds and stone walls at Porchester Castle for a wonderfully atmospheric carol festival. That's on Saturday at 6:30. More Christmas words and music with the Portsmouth Baroque Choir at the Church of the Resurrection at Cosham. That's on Saturday at 7:30. At Portsmouth Cathedral on Sunday at 3:30, they've got a children's Christmas tree service. And they do it all again at 6:30 for the Lord Mayor. And this time they've got a candlelit procession. The Choral Society at Dorchester are putting on an Advent concert with music by Handel and Vaughan Williams. That's at St Mary's Church on Saturday night. And they've got a carol concert there on Sunday night too. And the Renaissance Choir have a Christmas celebration with music and carols and readings by Gabriel Woolf. It's at St James's Church, Emsworth. Well, it's panto time again.
Oh, no, it isn't.
Oh, yes, it is. And all the productions are on Saturday night. The Dinky Flower Stage School put on Puss in Boots with 60 children in the cast. Someone somewhere must really like kids. It's at the Community Centre, Shoreham. Tickery Tock is a drama set in nursery rhyme land. It's at the South Hill Park Arts Centre in Bracknell. And they've got a matinee performance there on Saturday afternoon. A fairy tale from Hans Christian Andersen forms the basis of a Christmas entertainment called The Tinderbox at the New Milton Arts Centre with a matinee at 2. And on the Isle of Wight, the Cowes Drama Society present The Sleeping Beauty at the Trinity Theatre, Cowes. Stay in bed for 100 years. At least you keep warm. It's cold enough to freeze the valves of a brass band, but it doesn't stop them. And here are 3 concerts with carols. The Salvation Army, who else, take over Portsmouth Guildhall on Sunday at 3:30 and again at 6:30. At Holbury in the New Forest, the Esso Cinema is filled with the sound of the Marchwood Brass Band on Sunday at 8. And the Portsmouth City Band play the Porchester Community Centre on Sunday at 2:30. Back to the stage now for a party to end all parties, Abigail's Party. As social disasters go, this one is total. It's on at the Bournemouth Little Theatre on Saturday at 7:45. The Hamble Players put on old-time music hall with curtain up at 8 at the Memorial Hall. And at the Newport Apollo Theatre on the Isle of Wight, there's ballet with Peter and the Wolf in the afternoon at 2:30. And then in the evening at 8, there's Coppelia and Harlequinade. And one other Christmas show, A Dream of Christmas, is on at 7:15 at the Village Hall, Knighton, on the Isle of Wight. Oh, that's it for this weekend. I wonder what Chris has got me for Christmas. A hot water bottle, I hope.
A bobble for his woolly cap. And finally, regulars at the Frog and Frigate pub. Try saying that with your teeth in Southampton. Tell me they're hopping mad. The reason their pub sign with the frog emblem, a magnificent hand-painted effort worth some £400, has hopped it. It was blown down last Sunday and later disappeared from the pub hallway. There's talk of a handsome reward and maybe some Christmas spirit will bring it back. We'll be back on Monday. Until then, have a grand weekend. Bye-bye from Day by Day.